and the team also can't blame COVID because every team has gone through it. Like they're
That's
all
right. You can't say
they're
it was the protocols.
like you can't say that. Like they just like every team has gone through it. Like for all the highs that we had when KD won with the rookies against like the Raptors in that like really fun game, like at the same time, like they've now had all these like really bad lows, and they're on a trajectory where like they could fall anywhere. I mean, 1 through 5 is pretty close. Like they could lose home court. They could have to play the Sixers in the first round, or the Bucks in the second round for all we know, and the Bulls in the third round or something like that. Like they're in a tough situation. I do think that we should talk about, because I know we're already running a little long, but I do think it's important because it's like the biggest topic right now within the Nets circles, which is like the whole use of the rookies and developing them and stuff like that. And I
Yeah.
just think it has to be stated because I find it like just so infuriating. Like I want people to actually go back to the NBA record books and see how many rookies legitimately were rotation guys on contending teams, and I guarantee you'll be able to barely even count them on one hand. Like
Magic Johnson. That's all
yeah,
I got.
yeah, like and that's like real impact. Like I'm even talking like just someone playing even like decent like 15 to 20 minutes. Rookies, there is a reason, for as much as people hate him, and I'm not his biggest fan either, there is a reason why LeBron always wants to trade rookies, because he's been there and he knows that teaching them the ropes for a team when he's always in win now mode is not a fruitful exercise. They just make mistakes. Yesterday, Cam Thomas and Sharp, for some of the good plays they had, they made mistakes in the playoffs. What's the one thing you don't have? You don't have any margin for error, and you can't have guys learning on the spot. That is just not. It's not. It's not okay. It's not how you win. And so for people who are like, well, yeah, but like it's so great because like we're seeing what Kessler Edwards is going to become. I have to be honest. As you know, I'm as big of a Kessler Edwards fan as anyone is out there. But if you were to tell me tomorrow that they traded Kessler Edwards for a guy, whoever it is, that gives them a 4% more chance to win the title, you do it in a heartbeat. This team has to like win.
I'm in love with Kessler Edwards. I'm in
This
love
team
with him.
this
He's a,
team, like if you could tell me that we could trade Cam Thomas for a guy who will only help us this year and next year, and then beyond that the trade will look terrible, you do it. Like this whole idea that I think this complacency, and in a way I actually really do feel this way, and it's a strong take, and I don't even think I tweeted to or texted to you guys, but in a way the Nets being up 2-0 to the Bucks even without Harden was one of the worst things that ever happened to this franchise, because it gave everyone this confidence and this complacency that last year the title was theirs, and that we could basically run it back and not do anything differently and still be like this surefire, no doubt champion, when who the hell knows what would have happened. And even if we were to have won last year, that doesn't mean that other teams don't get better. So this idea that we're building this like 20-year dynasty like the Spurs or like the Patriots or whatever, and so Cam Thomas is like the next generation's like James Harden, like the team hasn't even made a conference finals yet, and we're in year 3 of the KD Kyrie thing. Can we just try to win like one title before we're talking about like the next generation of like um amazing talent? Like they clearly need to make moves, and this idea that they wouldn't trade rookies because of their potential and they could quote unquote lose the trade is so crazy and is so cocky and arrogant, and is such a slap in the face to all the other teams in the league. It's ridiculous.
I I am convinced that Sean Marks is playing the rookies to showcase them.
I really hope so because I
No, it's
don't
what they're doing. Like they
disagree. I don't think he's going to trade them, but
no, he's not going to trade them because he can't get anything from them. They're still late round picks. They're not jumping out of off the screen to make you want to, give up of anything of relevance. Like I had a trade that gets panned a lot and made fun of a lot, where I put 3 of these guys together and included Kessler, which I don't want to trade. I don't want to trade that kid. That kid could be somebody. I like what he can be, but what he can't be is a help to us in the playoffs. And he can't keep this thing from going bad. and we don't have a point guard, and we do need we need. It's like we were talking about. Do we need a point guard or do we need a 3-and-D guy? We need both. So,
Yep.
So all these guys are on the table, and that's why they're playing. They're playing in hope that they show something. So maybe you could say, hey, this is a first round pick who's going to be somebody. This guy, I got him in the late round and the second round, but if you take him off my hands for maybe a bad contract and I'll throw in this TPE, we will, we could do business. And considering how many teams have draft picks that are contenders, like Chicago could blow away anything that we put on the table.
Yep.
And that's another thing that's killing us right now is we have nothing. We have nothing really to trade. And the teams that are ahead of us, both of them, Miami Heat is below us, but I think they'll be ahead of us soon. They can make trades. They have assets and players that they can make a trade. So it's a tough situation, Sam. It's a really, really tough situation. But I don't like the going straight to the biggest name or the person who has the biggest burden. I like going to the problems.
Yep.
I'm not going to sit here and be mad at the coach that had us first, that somehow navigated all of this, and we were still first in the Eastern Conference. We don't have the rosters these teams to have, Sam. Look at this roster, that team we played. Would Nurkic start for us right now?
Yep.
So Nurkic would start. Who else was out there for them last night?
Covington.
Would Covington start for us, Sam?
Yeah.
Yes. Would Nasir Little potentially start for us if let's say we didn't have Covington and we could get Nasir Little?
Yeah, he could basically play in the Bembry role.
He's a way better Bembry, right? Like Ben McLemore probably would come off the bench before most of our guys. And this, so if we're sitting there talking about this being like we're playing a shitty team, I just named 4 players on that shitty team that played last night that would start for us.
You just named, by the way, probably their like 3rd, 5th, like 7th and 8th best players. Because think about it, Dame, CJ, Norm Powell, and Nance were all out, and you just said that all those guys would start for us right now.
Exactly. But you can't disagree with it.
No, I can't.
Right? So and think about the guys that they had coming off the bench. I've never heard of them, but I mean I've heard of Anthony Simmons. Simon Simmons. Anthony would play for us off the bench. He'd be our first guard off the bench.
Yep.
He's better than our rookies. So I'm talking about a bad team, right? And I'll even say Dennis Smith Jr., he might play for us. He's better than Javon Carter, right? So seeing all these guys, and Ben McLemore kind of had a game last night, I guess, right?
Yep.
All these guys I just named would play for us. That should tell you how bad our roster is.
Yeah, I mean, look, you can tell that our roster is so bad right now because they really don't have, like, in my opinion, any bad contracts. Like, they really don't. Like, because you would take the 3 stars, and then Joe Harris I still like, and, like, everyone else is, besides Patty Mills and Bruce Brown, is basically on minimums or rookie deals. And even still, even though they have no bad contracts, the players on their team, and this is a really good way to think about this, the players on the team are so bad that aren't like some of the preeminent guys we named, that they have zero trade value. Like, who wants Millsap? Who wants Javon Carter? Who wants Blake Griffin? Like I'm sure some teams would take Bembry, obviously, but Bruce Brown had probably.
We need Claxton, but his trade value has been hurt by this year as well.
Yeah, Bruce Brown is someone who last year had trade value. Now he's a disaster and can't get any minutes. you know what I mean? Like they just have even like look even LaMarcus, who I like a lot. Like he's still he's still for anybody, and even for Nets fans who are like, oh, LaMarcus is so important. Like LaMarcus gets wiped off the floor when he has to play against the more young and athletic teams. Like
exactly.
Like they basically look. I mean, what needs to happen, and we've said this now on like a couple straight podcasts, is like they need to cut Carter and Millsap because they just don't have like it doesn't make sense, and they need those roster spaces. I mean, one of them they're going to have to cut for a two-way guy. Like I think that's going to happen for Kessler or Duke Jr. because they have to convert one of those.
Right.
And then they also need to hope that like they get some luck in the buyout market. But like the last thing that I wanted to say, which is true, and I mentioned it on the Spaces actually, and when I did, I could tell that like Nets fans were really hit with like a dose of reality. Is like because the playoffs now have the play-in game, you now have 20 out of the 30 teams that think that they have a chance of making the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Or 20 of 30 teams will make the playoffs or some form of it.
Yep.
And then the 11 through 15, a lot of those teams are actually not going to think that they can. So,
right.
like, I think the trade season is actually going to be much quieter than usual because a lot of teams actually want to hold on to their guys. Like a team like the Kings in a normal year, or even the Timberwolves or whoever might blow it up, but they're like, no, what, we haven't made the playoffs in forever, so let's trade some guys. Or like, know what, we have a luxury tax bill, but know what, we have the chance to make the playoffs, so we're not going to buy out this guy so that he can go play with the Bucks or the Nets or whoever. So because the Nets have very few assets, and because I think that the buyout and trade market is going to be much smaller than in recent years, like they're in trouble in terms of even being able to get guys. Like really, like they are. That's why I said like I would have just kept someone like James Ennis over Javon Carter. Like the dude can at least shoot. Like keep him. Like what's the worst that's gonna happen? And it's also because of that where you have a lot of teams contending and no one wants to trade their assets, that it makes even more not getting something back in the Dinwiddie trade look that much worse.
Oh. New York City's, hold on to your hats.
Top on.